What's going on, guys? Welcome back to WrestleRant, where every single Tuesday I, Graham G.S. Matthews, break down all the original wrestling content I watch on the WWE Network. Today we're talking Roadblock 2016, not Roadblock End of the Line. We'll talk about that in December, but rather Roadblock, the one-off WWE Network event from March of 2016. An infinitely better show, in my opinion. I thought this was a great show, continuing the strong streak of pretty good network specials. I thought Beast in the East was awesome. The MSG one was pretty good, not amazing, but pretty good. This one, nothing's going to beat Beast in the East, but this one was pretty damn good in and of itself as well. It happened right before WrestleMania, so it happened after Fastlane, right before WrestleMania. So I think a lot of people thought that it would change the entire landscape of the WrestleMania card. It didn't. But for what it was, though, in and of itself, as a one-off show, it was very good. So kicking off the event for the WWE Tag Team Titles, The New Day defending their tag team titles against Sheamus and King Barrett as part of the League of Nations. A very fun match. Every single title defense New Day had at this point going forward, I thought they would lose the championships, making, therefore, every match they had that much more suspenseful in terms of them losing, potentially dropping the belts. This was a very good match. They also introduced Bootios. This was the night that Bootios made its debut in the WWE right before the bout. Not the actual cereal, but the idea of Bootios debuted here before the bout. The match itself, that was entertaining. New Day wins to retain their tag team titles. This kind of kicked off the subtle face turn of the New Day heading into WrestleMania, where they would take on the League of Nations in a 3-on-3 6-man tag team match. After that, we had Chris Jericho facing Jack Swagger. Mere days removed from Chris Jericho's awesome heel turn on Raw, taking on a patriot in Jack Swagger in Canada, of all places, was kind of weird. Jericho being a Canadian native, as a heel in Canada, taking on Mr. USA Jack Swagger was kind of ass backwards, but it goes to show how great of a heel Jericho is, that he managed to turn the crowd against him here by ranting on Canada, how much they sucked and all this other shit before the match, getting them to cheer Jack Swagger, talking about his own history with Jack Swagger, how it was Swagger, if you could believe it, 6 years prior, that pinned Jericho to win the World Heavyweight Championship when he cashed in Money in the Bank right after WrestleMania 26. But anyway, as the match was good, you knew Swagger wasn't going to win. But Jericho as a heel was friggin' great. He still is awesome regardless. But this was fresh off his awesome heel turn on AJ Styles on Raw, just mere days before this. As a match, this was good. Jericho scores a good victory. AJ Styles, I think, is nowhere to be seen. He was not even on the show, oddly enough. But still a very good match by itself, though. After that, for the NXT Tag Team Titles, the Revival defending against Enzo Amore and Big Cass, and a rematch from TakeOver London from that December. A great match. I really, really liked that tag team title match in London. Honestly, at this point, it's hard to say after the whole DIY Revival matches and the rematches with the Revival and American Alpha from last year. So it's hard to say where it ranks. But at one point, Enzo and Cass versus Revival in London was one of my favorite tag team title matches. Those guys had an awesome match in London. At that point, in my opinion, the greatest NXT Tag Team title match up to that point, like I said. They had a rematch here. Quite as good. I would say every bit as entertaining as the initial encounter. Both teams work very, very well together, I'm sure. They're going to have many more matches on the main roster to come. But this was great. I thought this match was really, really fun. Enzo and Cass, being carried to a very good match by Revival. And in the end, doing a similar finish to what they did in London with, I think, the Revival catching Enzo in the Shatter Machine to retain their tag team titles. And that would be the final, or not the final, but one of the final tag team matches of Enzo and Cass in NXT before being called up right after WrestleMania. So kind of a test for Revival and Enzo and Cass as to whether the main roster would react to them. And they did, obviously. The Canadian crowd knew every single word of Enzo and Cass's shtick. So that would obviously bode well for their eventual main roster debut right after WrestleMania. After that, for the WWE Divas Championship, the final defense of the Divas Championship before the dawn of the women's title at WrestleMania, Charlotte taking on Natalya. This was probably the closest we will ever get to the great match they had at NXT TakeOver 3 years ago on the main roster. None of the matches they had later on that year, in the summer of 2016, they were all right, just marred with fluky finishes and bad booking, all this other shit with Dana Brooke and Ric Flair and all this other garbage. So, as a straightforward singles match, I thought this was very good. Both women obviously work very well together when they're allowed to, and they're not brought down by bad booking, as I said earlier. But this was good. This was very, very good. Ric Flair was he was, I think, at ringside, but he didn't play a major role in the final few minutes of the matchup. Just some very, very, very good wrestling here. And obviously Charlotte retaining the title heading into WrestleMania, as she should have. But Natalya came close on a few occasions. The crowd bought into a few of the near falls down the stretch, which was great. So, again, these two work very, very well together when they're allowed to. And on the main roster, their matches have not been phenomenal. But, like I said, nothing's going to top the NXT TakeOver match from 3 years ago. But this was the closest they came, and the awesome atmosphere in Canada obviously helped as well. After that, a handicap match pitting Brock Lesnar against the Wyatt family members, Bray Wyatt and Luke Harper. A glorified squash match for Lesnar. The match went all of 4 minutes. Wyatt never tagged in once, never took a single bump at the hands of Brock Lesnar, which was very disappointing because initially the match was billed as Brock Lesnar versus Bray Wyatt. Now, WWE was getting it out of the way because Bray Wyatt it was supposed to be Bray Wyatt Lesnar at WrestleMania, but they changed plans and they did Lesnar and Ambrose instead. Whether that was a bigger mistake or it was a blessing in disguise, that's up to you to decide, because that match wasn't that good anyway. It was entertaining, but not that as good as it should have been, I'll say that much. I've talked about it multiple times in the past. But anyway, it was supposed to be Lesnar and Wyatt on this show. Never came to be. It was Lesnar and the Wyatt family instead, but Wyatt never tagged in. So we never saw Lesnar and Wyatt even interact at all, which was kind of disappointing, like I said. It was a quick win for Lesnar heading into WrestleMania, so it accomplished something, I guess. But beyond that, it was very disappointing, because I think we were all hoping for that Wyatt-Lesnar match. I mean, again, even if it was a 4-minute squash and, beating Wyatt, then would it have really mattered? Again, I think the case at the time was that WWE was holding off because they wanted to save Lesnar and Wyatt for later on in the year, but it never happened. It never happened, because Lesnar would go on to face Orton at SummerSlam instead. And Wyatt and Lesnar, again, I don't know if it would have been an instant classic, but Wyatt had been so damaged by this point. The guy wasn't even at fucking WrestleMania. I don't understand what the point was in not having him face Lesnar here and protecting the guy after he had been a loser for so long. Him and the Wyatt family lost to Big Show, Kane, and Ryback at fucking Fastlane. At this point, the guy was a glorified loser. So having him get beat by Brock Lesnar in 5 minutes would not have made a lick of a difference. It would have been entertaining to watch, but it never came to be. We had Lesnar beating the shit out of Luke Harper instead, who sold this offense very well. But again, for those of us that were hoping for Lesnar and Wyatt, we didn't get that. The old bait and switch by WWE here. After that, we had Sami Zayn and Stardust in a pretty lengthy match, and almost 12 minutes long. One of the longer matches in the entire show. I mean, Stardust, Cody Rhodes, great wrestler, but as Stardust did absolutely nothing for me. I think we all knew Sami was going to win. This was, again, fresh off of Sami Zayn's main roster re-debut on the Raw right before this show. They had a good match, went way longer than it needed to be. Stardust was just terrible at this point. Just no one gave a fuck about the guy. But it was still a good match. Zayn winning decisively, that was all that mattered. In his native Canada, too, that kind of helped as well. And then the main event for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship, Triple H defending against Dean Ambrose. And again, a great match. A lot better than Triple H and Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, if I might add. I thought these two had just great chemistry here. And Dean Ambrose looking really good in the feet at one point as well. He hit his finisher on Triple H. It looked like he had the match won. Triple H getting his leg on the rope at the last possible, or his arm or something, whatever. He got hold of the rope at the last possible second. Looked like Ambrose had the match won. That was a great near fall. Ambrose, again, like I said, looking very good in defeat here. These guys got a ton of time at almost 25 minutes, so it had that big fight feel to it. And again, you knew that Ambrose wasn't going to win the championship. I did pop big when I watched it the first time, thinking he had the championship won when he pinned Triple H. But I think we all knew deep down he wasn't going to win ahead of WrestleMania when Roman Reigns was already scheduled to go for that title at the main event of WrestleMania that year. But still, as a match, it was excellent, and definitely, in my opinion, one of the more underrated matches of WWE in 2016. But overall, I thought this was a great show. Triple H retaining his title. No titles changing hands on the show, but no titles needed to change hands on the show. They had a handful of title matches from the NXT Tag Titles, the Divas title, the WWE Tag Titles, and even the WWE Championship, which was rare for a one-off special on the network. It was a big get for the Canadian crowd, which was great as well. The Canadian crowd was awesome. Part of what made these one-off specials on the network before we started getting fucking 2 pay-per-views a month so cool was that they took place in awesome venues, from MSG to Japan to Canada, which was awesome. Prior to this point, we had not yet had a pay-per-view in Canada for the first time in a long time, so that was refreshing in and of itself as well. But as I think this was supposed to be 2 hours, it went 2.5, just because the main event ran long. Bunch of matches, but they were all very good. 7 matches in total, but it was a very good show. Very much enjoyed it the first time. Enjoyed watching it back the second time. A lot better than WrestleMania, I'll say that much. I think Roadblock should have been WrestleMania. Really, WrestleMania came early. But it was a great show. I enjoyed it. So what to see from this show? The main event, definitely must see. Revival and Enzo and Cass, again, other people might say not to check it out, and not as must see as I think it is. But again, I really like that match, and really a taste of what Enzo and Cass are capable of with quality opponents. So check that match out when you can. The women's match was great. The opening was entertaining. I would just suggest watching the whole show, but in terms of must-see matches, at least the main event and the NXT Tag Team title match, in my opinion. But that is my review of Roadblock from March of 2016. Again, not Roadblock End of the Line. That is coming in December, ahead of Roadblock 2017 if we get one. But anyway, thank you for checking out the show. I appreciate it. Be sure to drop a like the video, drop a comment, share the video, subscribe to the channel. All support is amazingly appreciated. Next Tuesday, another all-new episode of WrestleRant. Just new content going up every single day right here on the channel. Like I said, I appreciate your support. Be well, guys. Enjoy your week. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.